Hi, I'm Gary Engler, your socialist grandfather. In the last episode of Economic Democracy, or No Democracy, an anti oligarchy manifesto, the history of the left as a force for expanding democracy was discussed. That was followed by an introduction to the idiocy producing propaganda underlying capitalism. More on that this time. The truth is, capitalism, like any system of minority rule, requires us to accept its rules, power, and contradictions that go along with them. A system in which less than 1% of the population makes all the important economic and political decisions functions best when most people think most people are idiots. If the 90% of us who do all the work actually believed we were smart and capable of running the world, we might take over and say, hey, capitalists, it was swell, but we don't need you anymore. Or at the very least, a lot of us might ask, why, instead of how high when the boss tells us to jump. The best situation for capitalists is when workers are smart enough to do all the work, but brainwashed enough to think other workers are idiots. This explains the right wing attacks on public education, the mindless trash on TV or social media, and all the other indoctrination that the system calls popular culture. It aims to distract and induce at least passive acceptance of the system. But that's only part of the story. Equally important is convincing the majority that resistance is futile because while they may be smart enough to run their own lives, most everyone else is not. In other words, minority rule is necessary. If one were a conspiracy theorist, it would be easy to believe all this is the product of intelligent design, that there is a central committee of capitalist propaganda headquartered in some Swiss mountain resort that gets together regularly to plan and produce idiot producing information. But I'm pretty sure this isn't necessary. I'm pretty sure that the system mostly induces us to do this to ourselves, and it starts at work. Who runs your workplace? For most of us, the answer is a boss who reports to a higher boss, who reports to an even higher boss, who reports to a all the way up to the owner of the enterprise. This is called the chain of command. The words chain and command are both giveaways of a fundamental truth. Today's rules about the power of bosses and workers evolved from a time of masters, servants, and slaves. While many norms and expectations have changed over the years, and modern white collar management parlance attempts to convince us we are all valued members of a team, the fundamental truth that bosses give orders and workers are required to obey remains the same. This explains the use of the term wage slavery by some who oppose capitalism. It suggests that working for wages is similar to being a slave. That concept is older than capitalism, and even ancient Romans argued accepting wages for work puts one into a slave like position. Of course, supporters of capitalism deny this, while at the same time claiming people who work in the so called gig economy are not even wage workers, but rather independent contractors, because somehow that is a higher status. And of course, it avoids the boss paying benefits. In other words, even they acknowledge there is something inferior about being a worker under capitalism. The notion of freedom lost under capitalism is the subject of the next episode.